recorded, so it'll be available for you to view after the session is over. So we'll have the presentation by Captain Amit, who's been an aviator for the last 30 years. He's a fellow of the Royal Aeronautical Society. He's a safety and training expert and author of the blog mindFly. Over to you, Captain Amit.
Thank you very much, and welcome to mindFly. This is a series of webinars, and the speciality is that we are concentrating on human factors and cultures in organizations which have interdependencies and are peculiar to specific areas or regions. The usual operations is known to everybody. Everybody goes to work every day. But what is so special that we are trying to highlight is the human factor. Today's presentation is about high reliability organizations. In the previous webinar, we have spoken about the normal accident theory and about cultures. Here, everybody is looking for foreign object damage, FODs, basically debris, foreign object debris, which can cause a lot of damage and disruption to the operations. So this happens before and after. So similarly, other high-risk organizations like we have civil aviation and aircraft carriers, nuclear power, oil and gas. These are all high-risk industries. So there is a need for everybody to participate and look at the minutest details. So here they are looking at even small nuts, bolts, pins, needles, whatever can has the potential to cause damage. So reliability, what one can count on not to fail, that is reliability, while doing what is expected of it. So are systems reliable? Are people reliable? What are we looking at? Systems or people? So the definition suggests three questions. Who do people count on? So when you're flying or you're operating in an environment which is high risk, who do people count on? What do people expect from things they count on? And in what ways can the things people count on fail? So it is about systems and not people. So about what and not whom. When organizations fail, so what happens? Such a lapse could occur for at least three reasons. Someone somewhere didn't participate or anticipate in how things could go wrong. Deviation was not caught as soon. People didn't dig into unexpected events to understand. All three reasons mean that system is not as robust and mindful as it could be. What does failure mean around here? What things must go right? So that is safety 1 and safety 2. So you should know what should go right. That is one of the ways of finding out what is not going right. What could go wrong? So anticipating what could go wrong. How things could go wrong, the number of ways, what things have gone wrong before, and do people call attention to failure once they happen? Do people speak up or hide their mistakes? What happens when people report concerns of failures? What is the culture, the safety culture around here? And how much people investigate into even small failures? Do people update procedures if need be? Do leaders actively seek out bad news? Or they want to avoid bad news? So these are the issues about failures. So there is no point hiding failures. If you want to correct failures, you should make use of audits and reporting systems. So that culture has to be generated, the generative safety culture wherein everybody feels responsible. So do people feel free to talk to their superiors? There are 5 traits of a high reliability organization. First is preoccupation with failure. So failure is nothing which you should hide or be ashamed of. You should be actively looking at uh, issues which could cause failures. So need for continuous attention to anomalies that could be symptoms of a larger problem in a system. So for anomaly, we should have the background knowledge. So if you don't have the background knowledge, it is difficult to detect the anomaly. Cues of evolving failure. So when a failure happens, there are always cues preceding the failure. It is not that something happens outright. There are a number of cues. You can find the trends from data. Normalizing. Everybody wants to feel that things should be normal. Even after a failure, people want to return to normalizing rather than investing more time and effort in trying to find out what happened and how to prevent it from happening. Everybody looks for the easier way of normalizing. That is the human nature. Institutionalized wariness. So institutions should again dig in deeper and find out what happened, the root cause analysis that we have discussed in the previous webinars. Doubt as a mindset. So as an investigator, everybody should look suspiciously at things. So when you notice a nut or a bolt on the ramp, you should look at it suspiciously. It is not that somebody dropped it off from the pocket. It might have dropped off from a moving vehicle or an aircraft, which could lead to a potential danger. That should be highlighted. So such things should be in your mind. So when you are doing an external, you should not look at normal things. You should also be in the mindset of being doubtful. Any anomaly or anything out of normal should be highlighted. Be safe. So this is for the passengers or for the operating crew. It should be simplified. But what's inside is what is there for people at the back end or who have the data. So HRO is basically reluctant to simplify. They don't want to simplify issues or processes. They want things as complex as possible so that they know all the steps, each and every small step, and they collect maximum data. That is for analysis. But people at the front end, the pilots, they should have simplistic goals, objectives, and procedures. But people who are designing should have maximum data so that they can design a better system. So you need to treat every ski slope as if you're riding on it for the first time. The avalanche doesn't care about what you got away with the last time. Simple thinking example, if the alarm has failed, you should replace it with a new one. That is a simple thinking. But the HRO thinks in a different way. What if the alarm failure was caused due to something deeper? So you have to think about all the deeper implications of a even small failure. Third is especially for people working in the operations control or flight ops support and even engineering. So they analyze a lot of data and they can pick up peculiar trends. Sensitivity to operations. Pay close attention to operations. Don't make assumptions and ask questions. So we have seen it in the Challenger disaster, in the space shuttle with the O-ring. So it was known to the engineers, it was known at the back end, people had data, but sensitivity to operations, who was controlling people on the top, they took a decision. Use data to make decisions and track the outcomes. So even though the CEO or the head need not know everything, but he should know where to tap information from. Commitment to resilience. Resilience is that if there's a breakdown, how fast you can get back to normal. That is resilience. The ability to recognize, absorb, and adapt to disruptions. So most systems try to anticipate trouble spots, but high reliability systems also pay close attention to their capability to investigate, learn, and act without knowing in advance what they will be called to act upon. So if something happens which is out of the ordinary, so you should know that you have a process. If you put the event in the process, it will follow certain steps, and eventually you'll get to know what happened and how best to get back to normalization and investigate at the same time. So don't let failure disable the organization. That is the first thing. You have to protect the organization. So business continuity is first, and parallelly you have to run the investigation process. Recognize emerging anomalies to keep an open mind. React appropriately even under unanticipated conditions. Deference to experts. So experts have all the data and they know exactly what's happening. So who should be taking the decisions? Not the expert, but somebody at the higher level has to take a decision, but he has no knowledge about the intricacies of the system. So deference to expert mean men who can immediately sense the potential problem can indeed make a quick decision, alleviate the problem, or effectively decouple some of the technology, reducing consequences of errors in decision making. So, if you ask the safety expert, he will have his knowledge in safety systems, but not specific systems. So, you'll have to get down to an engineer or a pilot or any other operator in the operations control or ops support. They will give you the exact reason why things failed and what is the fix. So you have to refer to experts in most of the situations. The expert is the person with hands on knowledge of operations at that point of failure. When it happened, he will be the first person who will come to a conclusion, get you a fix. Give your experts access to upward reporting. Leaders must listen to those experts regardless of seniority. This is an example of the Bhopal Gas Tragedy. Everybody would be aware of it, December 2nd, 1984. There was methyl isocyanate stored in the facility. The plant was shut down, but they had certain storage tanks, canisters, wherein MIC was stored. There was about 50 tons stored in this tank, about 15 tons in the second one, and the third one was empty. So there were certain cues which they got. An operator reported some type of a smell. So that was dismissed because there was some spraying which happened in the morning. So they said, no, it's the spraying. So they dismissed that off. Then the gauges showed differential pressure. One of the gauge showed 6 psi, other gauge showed 30 psi. So they again dismissed this, basically saying that it is a gauge issue. And at the end, when people smelt some gas, actually, they went close to the canisters, the storage tanks, and they felt some rumbling. So they were in a kind of a dissonance. They couldn't comprehend the situation that the tank has shut down. What is this rumbling about? So basically, the water leaked into the tanks. This caused an over temperature in the gas which leaked. There were a lot of safety systems like this gas scrubber. Leaking gas could have been detoxified, but the scrubber was turned off. They had a water curtain, but that was not high enough to reach the gas. There was a flare tower designed to burn off gas, but a connecting pipe had been removed for maintenance. And they had a refrigeration system, freon system to cool the MIC. was shut down in June 1984 to save money, and freon was shipped to other plants. So this is a situation which we discussed in the previous webinar, normal accident theory. So under these circumstances, an accident was to happen, unavoidable, because people, they had the cues, they couldn't turn it into clues. So when you turn it into a clue, then you act upon it. So they dismiss the cue. In a HRO, they pick up even the smallest cue. If you get a smell, you have to confirm what kind of smell, where is it coming from, the source of the smell. So unless you investigate into it, if you dismiss off anything like this, then a major event is on your hands. Same is with the differential pressure and the rumbling. So easiest thing to think is, if a plant has been shut, then why should the gauges read different pressure? Or why should there be rumbling if the plant has been shut for a long time? So these are the issues with a high reliability organization, where they investigate the smallest thing. The pattern industry, there is a need for alertness, awareness, perception, and conception. So if we discuss perception and conception, perception without conception is blind. If you perceive something, you get a smell, but the conception is not there, then you're blind. And on the other hand, conception without perception is empty. So if you just see something and you don't perceive, you cannot think what's going to happen. It's basically empty. So the unexpected can escalate either when significant cues go unnoticed because there are no concepts to select them. That is the problem of blindness. So the unexpected of a disaster event can escalate when the cues in front of you, like the smell and gauges, go unnoticed, or when concepts that people deploy have no connection to particulars. Problem of emptiness. So you have a concept when an accident will happen, but what you see is totally different. You're not able to connect it. It's a problem of emptiness. So that is why when unexpected events happen, you would not have even thought of it or related to it, but things happen, unexpected events. So that is why if your conceptual knowledge is good and you can relate to it, that is how you can handle situations. So in the conclusion, the organization culture is prime, wherein the leadership ensures that people at the ground level are heard, and even the smallest issue is not ignored. The feedback loop is complete, and because the feedback loop is complete, people have the trust in the system. Mindful organizations, so people do not go through a consultant's recommendations blindly. So yes, organizations hire consultants, they have processes, but it has to be deployed mindfully. Actions basically turn circumstances into a situation that is comprehensible and that serves as a springboard for action. They are the actions of turning flux into circumstances, turning circumstances into comprehensible situation, turning comprehension into a direction and intention, and at the end, turning these intentions into their realization. So basically, you have actions or inactions. So that is an opportunity for you to identify a circumstance. So from a flux, the circumstances into a comprehensible situation. So your knowledge, so anomaly you have to identify, then you comprehend the situation. Turning comprehensible situations into a direction and intention. So you have the guidance of experts and you know how to act on it, and turning those intentions into their realization. So that is how high reliability organizations function and deal with failures. It's how fast you recover. Recovery is imperative, but you have to ensure that issues like investigation and empowerment and feedback are also taken care of. It is tempting to go through the sequence mindlessly, but there are alternatives. Some of them are in front of you. So, mindfulness is important because a lot of solutions lie in front of you or with people just in front of you. But if you're not aware of what's happening in your environment, so you're missing out important cues and possible help. So, thank you very much for your attention. And as before, mindFly blog, Twitter, YouTube, and the Facebook will host all the videos. You have my email ID. If you want to write to me, you're most welcome. Thank you very much. I will hand you over to Sargam for the presentation.
Thank you, Captain Amit. I
Yes.
request all of you to start typing in your questions, or you could raise your hand if you want to share your thoughts or some experience. While you do that, Captain Amit, I would like to ask you, in terms of aviation, how do you think airlines can turn into high organizations? I think all of them should be, but they're not. Can't hear you, Captain Amit.
Okay, as we have discussed in the previous webinars, the culture of the organization is important. So, do you have the confidence and are you allowed by the superiors to speak up? Uh, that is how small things are highlighted and cues are picked up at the early stage. If you look at the Columbia disaster, especially the
Right.
space shuttle disaster, the O ring, everybody knew about it. The engineers knew about it. But safety is, at some stage, it becomes something of how you perceive it and your risk tolerance. So, how do you place a particular possible failure into the risk matrix? Do you feel that it is so important or it's going to be so serious that you need to stop operations? Because when it comes to stopping operations, everybody thinks twice or
Right.
5 times. But when it comes to giving a low priority to safety, people don't think twice also. So when things start, operations takes priority. But at some stage, that is why the knowledge of the top leaders, the decision makers, policy makers is important. That is how people at the grassroots level get the confidence that if we speak, we will be heard. Otherwise, that
Right.
culture of reporting does not have any significance in the organization.
True. And how reliable do you think audits are, and how can we make them more reliable?
Well, the concept of audits is good. It is how you implement. That is for any process or concept. Even if you go for training concept is good, but how do you implement it, and how much confidence people have in it? How seriously do you take it, and the data? How do you use the data?
Right. Captain Amit, are you there? Seem to have lost it.
if the regulator sets this culture, it is and that is an important aspect in that audit process.
Right. You had dropped out in between for about a minute or so.
Yeah, there's some
So,
connection issue.
yeah, there's a connection problem. Anyway, so moving on, I don't see any questions yet. So, what do you
We
think
have
HROs?
we'll take a question here. I can see one. Yeah.
Okay.
Professor N.K. Singh wants to speak, and I think he has a lot of experience in aviation and other fields.
Okay.
Hello.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Your audio is clear.
Yes, it's clear.
It's clear now.
Whatever I heard now, Captain Amit Singh speaking about the kind of culture and the confidence which people should have so that they and also the perception and perception they have differentiated in their own way, but in psychology, the perception is something which is from imagination. It's uh, a kind of you can say a feeling which generates into mind, and it is not based on necessarily facts, but perception is something which you see, you interpret it, it exists. So the conception may not exist, but it is imagined. There is more imagination in conception. But as far as perception is concerned, it is based on the stimulus which are present, and a pilot or anyone driving, he just sees things and he interprets them. It is some danger coming from there. And somebody, there is no on the basis of stimulus, there is no stimulus. But still, he sees, oh, something is going to happen to me. Now, that's a kind of paranoid thinking. That is more in a conception kind of thing rather than perception. And perception also gets informed by that. But one thing very important has been said, that is about the culture. That depends on how others you have a certain feeling or certain faith in your leadership and in your organization, that the culture is built on that kind of faith. Now, that faith should exist in organization. You call it reliable organizations because reliable. I was very intrigued to learn that the caption of the webinar as reliable organizations. It's very important to have reliable organization, but reliable are not merely by technical standards. These are also by psychological standards that you have people who are trained and they perceive properly that there are people who can lead the organization, that people have faith in them and they can lead them. And matters here, the credibility of the leader. If people notice some defect, but they are afraid of talking to the leader, that means the leadership is lacking something. The leadership has credibility. They will know that, oh, my leader will listen to me and he will go to him. That's how many accidents can be avoided because the people have faith on each other. Now, this faith is sometimes lacking. Thank you. That's what I wanted to say.
Thank you very much.